I very often do like an icebreaking thing, like a little exercise, like an introduction round. The last thing we made was a wish list. You know, who are you and what is your wish for this trip?
Dear listeners, dear viewers, welcome back to the Boat Bike Tours podcast. My name is Ennie. I'm going to be your host for this episode. And I'm going to talk with Mieke, who is a tour leader, about keeping the spirit up on board. I think it's best if you introduce yourself first, and then we're going to start talking about keeping the spirit up.
Oh, thank you, Ennie. Thanks for asking me. It's really nice to be here. My name is Mieke van der Werk, and I come from a small place in Groningen. It's my favorite word to let people pronounce on my trips.
It's very difficult.
It's very difficult, yes. And I'm a tour leader at Boat Bike Tours.
Mm-hmm. And how long are you a tour leader now?
Well, my real profession is something else. I'm a chef, really. But a few years ago, I think it's about 6 years ago, I did it for a season, and I worked for another company as well as a tour leader. And now I'm back. So I did a bit long season this year, and I like it so much that I'm not even going to cook next year. I'm coming back again.
But how did it work? How did you decide as a cook, I'm going to be a tour leader now?
Oh, yeah. Well, it's a long story, but I do it in a nutshell. I was working on a ship where another company was doing bicycle tours. And every morning I was standing there after breakfast, looking at the tour guides, putting their clothes on and going on the bicycles with the people and having a good time. And I was there with the potatoes. And I thought, I want to do that. And I asked one of the tour guides, not from Boat Bike Tours, I have to say this, how do you become that? And she sort of looked me up and down. She said, I don't know. So, what do you mean, I don't know? So she didn't really reply to that. So I thought, come on. So next day I started phoning people, and I phoned Boat Bike Tours. And the lady who was running the place, then Yossi, she said to me, when are you free? And I said, well, next week. She said, we're going to meet. We have a discussion. And she hired me on the spot.
That's amazing.
So I thought, wow, this is nice. And I really, really liked it.
And how did it work? So you became a tour leader, and then what was the first thing you had to do?
Obviously, you have to be trained first. You have to get a lot of, you have to get your first aid. You have to get into a sort of training schedule. You have to go with another tour leader. And I did that for 2 trips. And then I was sort of on my own with experienced tour leaders, of course.
Mm-hmm. And did you miss cooking sometimes?
Well, I still do it. I'm still a chef, of course. And last year I was still cooking, and I thought, I do this season, and then I'll go back to cooking, and it sort of disappeared a little bit, the missing the cooking, because it's just, who gets paid for cycling around with wonderful people all week?
Yeah, that's true.
It's just an amazing job.
Yeah, exactly. And talking about keeping the spirits high. So, what do you think makes a group special? How do you give them their spark? What's a special group for you?
I think the good thing about this, the easy part of it, is that all people we get as guests are having the same interests in life. They're all sort of, they're all people who know what they want in life. They're sporty, otherwise you don't go on a cycling holiday. They all like seeing different countries because they all come from different countries. They like socializing, otherwise you're not going on a group tour. So it's quite easy to have this start already. That's a present. They give you the present to make with this beautiful material to make a good group. And very often it goes automatically. You don't really need to work hard to make the group work.
Yeah. Did you have a favorite group so far?
Oh gosh, that's a difficult one. I like all the groups.
Yeah, if the mentalities are quite similar, then that makes sense.
Of course, some groups are louder than other ones, especially when you have charters, when the whole group knows each other. Sometimes it's just one big party. But, I think every group has got something special. So.
Do you often do charter trips?
This year I think we had three charters. Yeah.
And how else do they differentiate from the normal trips where people don't know each other?
I think they are a little bit more self-resilient. They can look after themselves. They don't need so much entertainment, if you like. With other groups, you try to keep them busy. You try to organize something in the evening so they don't have to sit on their own. With charters, that's not so important. They still like to have things to do, and they like to have a little push in the back to do things and not just sit in the bar and drink. But with the charter, it's a bit easier.
Yeah, I get it. I mean, of course, the people know each other.
Yeah.
They probably don't see each other that often, then all come together on
That's
a trip.
right.
So
Yeah. So they have a lot of memories to share and show pictures of their grandchildren.
yeah,
Stuff like
exactly.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, and if people don't know each other at all, what do you do in the beginning to make them feel more comfortable with each other?
I very often do like an icebreaking thing, like a little exercise, like an introduction round. The last thing we made was a wish list. Who are you and what is your wish for this trip? And then we sort of wrote it down. And then the last evening, we just looked around and see whether the wishes came through. True, I mean, and that was really nice. But when you have a little icebreaker and everybody has a little thing to say in the beginning and tell the group who they are, that works.
What kind of things did they wish for?
Well, of course, the good weather was always there. To try all the different wines on the Moselle, and making good friends. They're normally the good wishes, and they come true.
Yeah. So in your experience, do they become friends by the end of the tour?
A lot of them do. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, I also saw so many people like texting us that they want to come back on a tour to meet with their friends again.
That's
that
right.
they met on their previous trip. I think that's quite special.
And a lot of people, we have these little booklets on board that are on the table there, and people ask us, the tour leaders, on the way, can you recommend any trips? And then we give them those little leaflets, and then they start getting together, forming groups, and they want to know all the information, and we can show them some stuff on the internet. And yeah, I think a lot of people do repeat business together.
So which trip do you usually recommend if people ask you?
Well, it depends which one we are on. I mean, when I'm on anything in Holland, I normally try to get them to France or to Germany, of course. I mean, one of my favorites is Cochem to Metz, which is really special.
Trip.
And when I'm on Cochem to Metz, I say, you have to do Amsterdam Bruges, because that's another beautiful trip. And I think my personal favorite is the Waddenzee, the island hopping one in Holland. That's really special.
On the sailing ships.
On the sailing ships,
yeah,
yes.
I like that one too.
Yep.
So, of course, you're interacting a lot, socializing a lot with the people on board during a week. How do you recharge your own social battery?
My own social battery? Well, I sleep for 6 weeks. No, that's joking. No, it's not really. I don't really need any recharging, because you get energy from the people as well. It's not just giving; it's taking as well.
So what do you usually do to make the people be more comfortable, not only with things you organize in the evenings, but also what is your secret recipe to making the trip or the guiding also interesting for the people, keeping the spirits up?
I think, I don't know whether there's a secret. I mean, everybody's got their own personality, of course. I like to make people aware of how we live in Holland, for example, or how people in Germany live, and to make them aware what they are seeing. You can just cycle and look, but you don't see. It's more interesting to look and see as well and understand what you're seeing.
Yeah, I think that's also what our tours are basically about, because it's slow travel. People should enjoy the moment, the cycling. They're going to discover the country completely else. And I think the tour leader makes a big difference, because every tour leader has their own style of guiding.
Absolutely, yes.
So your style of guiding is more explaining and telling them.
Experiencing and... I'm not really somebody who tells a lot of numbers and years and God knows what, when a church was built and by whom, because I'm like a fruit fly. I forget things like that myself. But things that I'm really interested in and have passion about, I like talking about, nature and birds and what we see, farmlands, animals, stuff like that.
Did you have a lot of good weather this year, or?
Yeah, quite. Yeah, we had very warm days and very little rain, as far as I can remember. You forget very soon, because it doesn't really matter whether it rains or it's windy because we go cycling anyway, and it's always fun.
But a lot of people are scared to have a week of bad weather. So do you also experience that a lot, that people are scared in the beginning?
A little bit, and it very often happens that there's rain in the morning and people say, "Oh, I'm not going. I'm staying on board for the day." And then we go cycling with a group and we come back and people say, "Oh, I wish I'd gone," because we come back all happy and hyped up and oh, it was fantastic, and because it doesn't matter when you get wet, really, does it? When it dries again. And then they all get a little bit disappointed that they stayed on board. And then they'll come in the rain the next day. Because it's fun anyway.
Yeah, exactly. So there you managed to keep the group happy even though it might be raining.
I think so. Because you can't do anything about it, can you? You can moan about it, but we're not going to change it.
No, unfortunately we can't control it.
So we're going whatever. And I've never really had any people who sort of gave up or thought it was horrible. Everybody comes back happy.
Yeah, that's nice.
That's nice, yes.
Also, because you also are a chef, can you tell us a little more about the food on board?
Well, personally, I think it's wonderful. Of course, I have to say this, but seriously, I think I'm quite amazed by the food sometimes. How good it is. Of course, you have to realize that. I mean, you know this and I know this, but how the kitchens or the galleys, as they're really called in the shipping, they're very small. Sometimes they're tiny, and you still have to cook a 4 or 3 or 4 course meal for a lot of people. And I know you have all day to do it, but still, it's a lot of work. And when you see what comes out of these tiny kitchens, it's all worth a restaurant. Really, you could, if you get it in a restaurant, you will be happy to pay for it and be proud of it that you got it on your plate.
Yeah.
So I think it's wonderful.
Yeah, I'm always impressed. I've never been in the kitchen, so I'm really curious about how it works.
Oh, you have to go and look. Well,
that's true.
It's a lot of organizing, and the whole day you work towards this 1 hour really in the evening that it goes out, and it has to go out hot and at the same time, and it's like a bit nerve-wracking, but what I've seen in on all the ships, it always works, and it's really, I'm really proud of the chefs.
How does it work with delivery and everything? How is the boat getting supplied? How does it work with breakfast and everything?
How does it work with breakfast?
Yeah. Well, do they get fresh bread every day, or
no? Normally the supplies are once a week. And I'm just telling you this from my own experience, of course. But normally the deliveries are once a week, and then the bread is semi-baked, and then you bake it on the day, on the morning.
Okay.
It goes in the oven, and then it's freshly baked, really. And all the fresh stuff. Of course, sometimes it runs out, and I'm sure that every chef, like I did, we know in every place we know the supermarket and the greengrocer and the local farmers market.
But that's also really nice. Then they get food from the area they're in.
That's right, yes. And a lot of chefs do a lot of interesting things. They make real German food or real Belgian food, and that's really exciting. I like that.
Yeah, that's really nice. Then you don't only get to explore the cities, the nature, the cycling in the area, the language, the experience from the tour guide, but also the food from the area.
It's a full package.
Yeah, it's a full package.
It's fantastic, yes.
And then they're already well fed, breakfast, and then you take them on the bike ride. Is there anything in between, or how does the
food-wise, you mean?
No, I mean
I can talk about food all day.
For the schedule. So they're having breakfast, and then do you immediately take them on the bike ride, or is there a briefing in between?
Now, after breakfast, we normally start riding. And then on the first day, of course, you've got your fitting. We fit the bike, make the saddle the right height, and do any adjustments. But normally every day you start riding straight after breakfast. And then, of course, you find a lovely place to have coffee somewhere. And maybe you have a museum somewhere or a visit in the town. And then at lunchtime, you find a place where they can eat a packed lunch or have a picnic. And some people want to eat in a restaurant, so we always find that. And then in the afternoon, you have the same program again. We start cycling after lunch, and then we have a tea break, which ends up in having a wine normally, or a glass of beer maybe.
Yeah.
And, a bit of sightseeing and a little bit of nice cycling, and then you get back to the ship. And then it's normally a little drink, shower, and dinner.
Yeah.
And that's your
The
program
dinner is
done.
always my favorite part.
Yeah. or the drink before.
Yeah, all the food basically is
Oh,
just
yes.
so nice. Not having to think for yourself, what am I gonna cook
It's
today?
fantastic, isn't it?
Yeah, I always say you put your brain in the freezer and then you just enjoy the trip because
Yeah.
there's nothing to think about other than just immersing yourself in the culture and the trip itself. But it's so nice to have someone else thinking for you and you just follow the schedule and
It's
everything.
amazing. And a lot of people tell me, that the expectations of the food were not really very high. They're expecting, I don't know, pasta or something, chicken and rice. And then they get this wonderful meal and you can see the eyes going, wow, taking pictures of it. And the chef always get the biggest applause at the end.
Obviously.
Because he or she is, of course, the hero.
Yeah, exactly. But also the tour guide because you're basically entertaining also the group all day long. So do you have a favorite memory of a group experience maybe this season?
It's a difficult one because every day brings something nice, and I can't really think of something extra special. I think most days are nice, and most people are nice, and all the places are nice where we go to. So I think it's just all days are wonderful, basically.
So what was your favorite place this year? You already mentioned that you really like the Waddensee. Do you have any special tips on where to go on one of our trips? What's your favorite area? Your favorite nature?
I think in Holland I like Friesland. Of course you've got the islands, and then part of that tour in the northern part of Holland is Friesland, which is very nice cycling. If you like cycling, it's just very long cycling paths, very nice nature, lots of agriculture, interesting things that grow on the sides of the road.
What grows on the sides of the
Well,
road?
you have in Holland, of course, you have your plants and tulips and flowers, and you have areas where there are special potatoes, for example. If somebody doesn't recognize what it is, I normally stop and show them and I don't know, pull out a potato and let them. Oh God, I hope there's no farmers looking to this. No, I'm joking. I don't pull out any potatoes.
Exactly. Only jokes here.
This is not true.
But that's really nice. Then the people get to see even more.
Yeah, that's right. And they ask me when they see cows that have a milk robot. They have like a little sensor around the neck, and they say, what is this thing? And then maybe I try to get a farmer and ask them. And, things like that. Just make them experience it hands-on. I think that's really nice. Throw the bicycles on the side of the road and just go into a field and have a look around and taste it and smell it. And I think that's the only way that you can really experience it.
Yeah, that's so true.
So that's why I like that area, because there's lots of opportunities to do that and to really get people with their hands in the earth.
Yeah, and do they usually also do it? Dig out the potatoes?
No, they're not allowed to do the one potato only.
One potato only. Okay. Yeah, and you've also been guiding in Germany, right?
Yes.
What's your favorite area there?
I think I must say the Moselle, because it's some places that are like a fairy tale. If you take Saarburg, it's a beautiful little village, and it's got a waterfall, 20-meter long waterfall in the middle of town. And I always say, it's like Disney World, but it's real. It's not. Well, it is of course man-made, this waterfall, because they needed the water in the town. But it's so beautiful. Some people they just stand there and they get really emotional about the beauty. And I know it sounds ridiculous, but you can see that they have sort of tears in their eyes because it's so beautiful. It's like a fairy tale. You have so many castles. And,
yeah, exactly.
And it's just if you especially for people who come from overseas where they don't hardly have any history at all, and they see all these castles, they're just flabbergasted. They just didn't know it existed in real life.
Yeah, also I really like the different castles because they're not all the same.
No, not at all.
They look so different. Like Burg Els, for example, is such a wonderful castle.
And that's a surprise as well, because it's a castle where you have to go through the woods for 40 minutes, and then all of a sudden this castle is there, which is crazy. It's just like a Fata Morgana.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I grew up in the area, so I always liked going to the castles and everything.
It's beautiful. Yeah.
But I have never considered like cycling and going there by bike and boat, and it's just such a wonderful concept.
That's a fun thing that you can take the time because, of course, the distances aren't huge. Some of the distances we do in a day at home, I can do in an hour and a half. But you don't want to do that because it's not the Tour de France; it's a holiday.
Yeah.
So it's so lovely that you can take all your time to go and visit a special castle and go and visit a waterfall or go and visit a tiny little town and talk to the people there. That's fantastic. And if you just race through the whole day, you don't have any opportunities to do that and experience it. And then you could just be in any country.
Yeah, exactly. But do you also have people sometimes who would like to bike more, or are the expectations usually right?
Well, normally in a group you have a couple of people who think it's going too slow or it's too short. But when you convince them that there is more than just racing, they start enjoying it. And if we have a big group who just want to cycle, we divide, of course, in a fast group and a slower group, and then you've solved that problem.
Yeah,
Then you
that's
just
really
have a
smart.
group that can make kilometers or miles, and the other group to enjoy the environment.
Yeah. Yeah, I can imagine that being very difficult to have a huge group where people have so many different expectations.
It is sometimes, and sometimes the first day you don't know, you have no idea, and we always tell people as well, the first day we're going to just divide the group in two, and then we just see how we get on. And then by the end of the day, we normally know how we're going to divide the group the next day. Maybe a fast group or a relaxed group. I never call it a slow group because that's for old people. We are a relaxed group.
Exactly. It's also about what you want on your holiday. Do you
That's
want
right.
to like do the sport or do the
Yeah.
enjoying?
Yeah, and as soon as people realize how much there is to see and how much there is to learn, if you want, they don't mind going a little bit slower than they used to because it's just too much fun.
Yeah.
And they don't want to miss out on the fun.
Yeah, exactly. And other than that, what else do you organize in the evenings for the people to do? Or do they usually go out to the cities or?
Well, it depends where we are and what the program of the week is, because some weeks have inclusions or like excursions that we have to do. If there is nothing on the program, I like to do a walk anyway after dinner, so it doesn't really matter. Like I said, I don't like talking about when the church was built, but I prefer to tell people how people live and I don't know, things like that. And I do a walk after dinner, or we can do a quiz night, or we can do a tasting of some sort, a beer tasting, a wine tasting, a sweet tasting. The tour leaders can do whatever they want, really, and that's nice. And people normally like that, whatever it is. And of course, there are people who don't want to be involved and they just go and do something else. You know,
exactly.
it's their holiday, it's their party. And if they want to join us, everybody's welcome. And if they just want to hang around and chill, that's fine too.
And what's your favorite thing to do? The quiz or more the tasting of things?
Oh, tastings, of course.
I thought so.
No, I like everything. I as long as people are having a good time, I'm having a good time, of course. And that's what it's all about.
Yeah. So this is not draining for you at all to be on the ships because you're also doing more weeks in a row. So you're not going home in between.
So,
or
well,
are you?
I don't do more than 4 weeks. Last year or this year, I did 4 weeks behind each other. That was fine, yeah. But
Yeah.
I don't know whether I want to do 8 weeks.
Yeah,
Because you get big muscles as well after, all this cycling. I need to buy bigger clothes.
But I'm always really, really impressed by tour guides, how you can really keep the energy high and you're not tired or anything after a week. What's the secret recipe there?
I think it's about not seeing it as a job. It is a job, of course, and if things go wrong in whatever that might be, it's different as well. But just enjoy it. If you're enjoying something, and I think that's the same with every job.
Yeah, I think so too.
I
As
think
soon
you're
as you
enjoying
do
your job
something,
as well. Yeah.
If you do something you really like, it doesn't feel
Doesn't
like
feel
a
like
job.
work. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's a secret. So now everybody knows.
So only become a tour guide if you're a really social person who.
Yeah, well, I think the lesson in life is enjoy your job.
Yeah, enjoy
Just
your
enjoy
job.
your job or get out.
Yeah, exactly. And do you have any favorite memories of specific guests coming to you and giving you a compliment or something?
I think, of course, the biggest compliment is when they asked you to do it again with them. You know, if they want to come back next year and say, when are you working? Can we keep in touch and send me your plans for next week? Or when a whole charter wants to come next year and want you to be their guide again. That's the biggest compliment.
That's
wonderful.
really nice. Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, that sounds really good.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. And is there anything else that happened this season that you will keep forever in your memories?
Oh gosh, that's such a difficult. I should have prepared this. I should have made a list of really wonderful things. No, I don't have one single thing that happened that will be in my memory forever because I just had lots and lots of interesting and nice things happening.
Yeah.
So,
How many weeks did you do this season?
I did 19, I think.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah.
I would be able to grab a specific memory.
No. There's just a lot of nice memories and all nice weeks, all of them. There wasn't a single week where I thought, I'm glad that's all over.
Yeah. So we're coming closer to an end.
Oh, that's a shame.
So I'd like to ask you one last question, because at the end of each episode, we'd like to ask one question that we often get from guests writing us to the office. So my question for you is the water free on board? Or can they drink the tap water? How does the water supply work on board?
The water is free. You can drink the water from the tap. Of course, it's not connected to the mains, so it might taste a little bit different than it will on the shore, but it's totally clean water. Nothing wrong with it. I drink it all the time, and I'm okay. I've never been sick.
You're still here.
I'm still here. No, it's fantastic water, and of course it's free. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So thank you so much for talking to
it
me
was good
today.
fun. Yeah.
And thank you for sharing all your experiences also with our listeners and viewers. And to you, thank you so much for watching or listening to this episode again. And if you want to see more of our episodes, you can do that on our website, boatbiketours.com, or YouTube or Spotify. Thank you.